What I'm going to try and do tonight is I'm going to try and share with you a little bit of the experience I had and the journey I had. Some of you have told the story. Can you hear again? Is it better? Okay. Some of you have heard a part of the story and some of you haven't. So the best way I could figure out to do that was to use something called the hero's journey. I don't know who's heard about this. Has any one of you heard about the hero's journey? It's a book written by Joseph Campbell, and funny enough, what he did is it's called The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and the whole concept behind the hero's journey is that every single movie and every single story we tell, every single myth, mythology, even religious stories follow a very, very specific golden thread. And if you go analyze stories, you'll find that almost all stories fall into this magical golden thread. And I'm going to base my talk tonight on this. And just out of interest, if you look at the back of this book and you read what Time magazine says, it says the book for which he's most famous, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, is a brilliant examination through ancient hero myths of man's eternal struggle for identity. And maybe to some extent, I think that's why we go put ourselves out there and go struggle so that we can find out, call it, what we're made of. But before I dig into this, it's important to start and just say thank you. There's a lot of people that made this possible. Something like this just doesn't happen overnight. And I think first and foremost, I need to thank the sponsors who made it possible for me. Johan sitting in front here from Value Added Life and Procydin. Thank you guys. If they didn't come on board, I wouldn't be standing here tonight. Now, for those who know me will know this is by far my favorite brand. If you saw one of the pictures back there, I absolutely love Salomon kit, and Salomon came on board a while ago and they supported me, making it possible to have all the necessary equipment. Titanium Studio, and then some of my friends and family who dug in and helped to make this possible. We're blessed right now with Expedition Africa guys coming through town. Some of you might have seen them on the Gama Road. Unfortunately, all the guys on the Gama Road got an hour penalty. They were supposed to come down around the beach. But I mean, for those guys to be here, it's unfortunately an expensive sport. It's not something that's cheap. The travel, the accommodation, the gear, all those things. So family, friends, sponsors, all of you guys, thank you, thank you, thank you. You made it possible for me to stand here tonight. Now, if you look at the hero's journey always starts in the ordinary world. So any movie will always start with a scene or an opening scene where they kind of set the scene from where this person is. So for me, if I want to call it ordinary, my ordinary world is that. It's my family. And it's this amazing town that we live in. I think we're all blessed to be able to stay in such an amazing place. I'm blessed to have such an amazing wife. I don't know where my two kids is. I told them the story this afternoon, but I think they lost track after 2 minutes. Okay, so they're obviously somewhere around here. But I mean, that's the ordinary world. So everything always starts in the ordinary world, and from the ordinary world, one basically gets a call to adventure. And if you go watch any movie, it will always follow a similar trail. Now for me, the call to adventure happened by a Facebook post. You guys don't need to read there on the right, but that's an invite to a launch of this race. It happened last year. The launch event was on the 28th of July, on my wife's birthday. So I knew there was no way I could attend it. Plus it was in Joburg, so it wasn't possible to go there. The bottom line is, I was kind of hooked. There were one or two words in there, like more than ordinary and a race like no other. That kind of it ticked the right boxes. And then when the website came alive a day or two later, there was 3 quotes on that website. And those 3 quotes kind of set the tone. The first one said, could someone run a comrades marathon every day for 5 days? And then they predicted that the winners would do it in roughly 65 hours. And then they said, for the average runners, that's now the rest of us, could you do it in 120 hours or 5 days? And then they said there's something, or is there nothing average about this challenge? Okay, so that's important. We'll come back to that a little bit later. That was said by Eric Vermeulen, one of the race directors. There was another quote. It says that, these races are inspired by hardship and difficulty. And that's something that kind of shapes our lives. I mean, I just read something today you know, that they said you can't dream or you can't wish for a dream to come true without the dream not having come through or come true earlier, not being the opposite of it. For the dream to come true, the dream mustn't be there in the beginning. So that's the whole idea with this. It's hardship. You have to kind of suffer a little bit to learn something about yourself. And then the last one says, the greatest journeys we can ever take are the ones that we find out what we're made of. And they said that the Munga is going to be one of those journeys. So those three quotes kind of ticked all the right boxes. So to an extent, I think I was hooked and I thought this is something that I definitely need to do. In the hero's journey, after you receive the call, there's always a refusal of the call. I think you all can remember a bright idea you had, or a plan you had, or an inspiration you had, and at the moment of getting that inspiration or that plan, it all made sense to you, and you thought, tomorrow morning I'm going to dig into this. Even people who say, you know, tomorrow morning I start training, or tomorrow morning I start my diet, or I stop drinking or stop smoking. I don't, no matter what it is, I don't want to be specific. But I mean, I think you've all kind of experienced something like that, but then you've also experienced, call it the refusal of it, where your mind starts finding reasons for you not to do it. And for me, those things were kind of summed up in this image that appeared a while later. And I started thinking to myself, at that point, I've never run further than 100 miler. And Sean's sitting here tonight at a 100 miler race director, so I ran the first, or call it the first, what's the right?
The relaunch. Yeah.
The first relaunch of the Addo 100 miler last year. And I think I stumbled in about just under 36 hours. At that point, I thought I was moving at a fairly decent pace, but Eidie will tell you nothing like that, okay? My feet were broken. If you look at that guy's poor feet, his feet is in a brilliant condition compared to how mine looked last year.
It's a girl.
Or a girl, sorry. Well, get the nog as 'n ou met 'n mooi ring. Sorry. Okay, my feet look way worse than that girl's feet. Okay, my apologies. Now, so you kind of think to yourself, if you've done 100 miles and you were broken, how can you go 2.5 times that distance? Because that's 400 kilometers. And then there's a few other little things in there. The race villages. This race is was semi-supported, so it means that we had to carry all of our own kit, we had to carry all of our own equipment. All they would do is they would provide us with water between race villages, and then you would be able to eat and sleep at the race village if you choose to do so. And those water points, there's only 10 of them, they were 20 to 30 k's apart, they were actually 30 to 40 k's apart. Now for those guys who run or have done a run before, if you do a road race, the water points are normally no further than 3 kilometers apart. Okay? That's on tar road. We had to go on trail terrain, and we only would get water every roughly 30 kilometers. So that kind of started to mess with your mind, and I thought maybe I shouldn't. Like a few other guys, maybe I should wait and then check what the other guys do and then do it the next year. But in the hero's journey, one meets a mentor, and you meet someone or something happens that kind of triggers it for you, and it kind of, call it, makes it possible for you. Now, I didn't really meet a mentor. Two things happened, and it's things that's actually happened before. The first was, I thought, why not link this to the whole running in support of Sea Rescue campaign. Now, most of you know, there's a lot of Sea Rescue people here as well, most of you know I'm very, very passionate about Sea Rescue. And about 2 years ago, we started this whole concept of running in support of Sea Rescue. Sea Rescue is a non-profit organization that's got an annual, call it, financial burden or a financial requirement of about 74 million rand. So that means 74 million rand needs to be raised annually for the organization to continue to provide a very essential service. So I thought for myself, the little bit that I can do to raise funds would make a difference. And we've been fortunate that running in support of Sea Rescue campaign has raised over 40,000, I'm not exactly sure, we might have even hit 45,000 rand. And the goal is to go to 100,000 rand. So I know it's still far off, but I say rather reach for the stars, and if you just get off the ground, at least you've done something. So that was part of it. I thought, let me link this to my running in support of Sea Rescue campaign. One of the key things that does, it kind of gives you a little bit of a kick underneath the butt, if you can call it that, and you realize that you're doing this now for something bigger than just yourself. So that was part one of the whole thing. And then there was a second part. And the second part is the people in that photograph. You can't see them, you can't see their faces, but there's a lot of them sitting here tonight. I realized that I don't need to go meet a mentor. I actually, can I call it work, or I know 25 or 50 of them that I share a sea rescue base with every single week. These are normal people. There's a few of them sitting, some of them put sea rescue clothing on, some of them don't. They're normal people with normal jobs, normal families, yet at a moment's notice they will literally leave what they're doing to rush out to who knows where to go help someone they've never met in their life, and they don't care if it takes 1 hour, 2 hours or 2 days, which has happened in the past. So for me, I didn't need to meet a mentor. Those people were actually around me. And this next quote is actually for me what it's all about. It's about commitment. And all the guys that know me will know that that's the number one thing that we always talk about. If someone's interested in doing something, if someone likes to get part, I mean, every single week we have people coming to the base, not every single week, let's say every now and then there's a new person who wants to be part of Sea Rescue. They want to do what we do. But that's just being interested. Really, really committing is meaning if you get called 12 o'clock in the night, like last night, okay, to get up out of your warm bed and go down and go find out what's happening at the race, you do that and you stay there for 2-3 hours, okay? That's what you call commitment. I mean, and that's why I applaud all of these people around me, and I think that's why I do these races and why I find my inspiration in that. I find it in the inspiration of the people that surround me. So for me, that was my mentor, and that pushed me over the threshold. So thanks, guys. The next step in the journey is one needs to cross the threshold, and crossing the threshold is actually like starting something, and that was very easy. If you look at the race statistics for the Munga, first we were 59, then we were 29, then we were 24, and then eventually we were only 23 people who lined up on the start in Belfast at Larkin Flame. So we were a very small group of people. It was actually quite a strange experience to stand there between them. And that's a picture I took at the start. And as Lao Tzu says, you know, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. In our case, a journey of 400 kilometers. And I don't think I can ever explain to someone what goes through your mind in those 5 minutes before that bell rings or the gun goes or whatever you want to call it. You literally question every single thing and every single decision and why you're here, why you want to do it. Why do you want to leave a perfectly warm and comfy place like this, go out into nowhere and hope that in 5 days' time you will get to your destination? You know, so it's difficult to explain. The only thing I can tell you is if you're ever in a setup like that, all the people are in the strangest mindsets, and it's actually surreal. There's no other way to explain it. And then in a moment like this, the bell goes. In our case, the trophy was a piece of railway line that they got, that an artist or someone made into a trophy, and they hit it with a hammer, and off we went. Okay, so yeah, our race started. We had 400 k's in front of us. So in the hero's journey, once you cross the threshold and you start, you're confronted by tests, you meet friends and allies, and you meet enemies. Now for me, in this race, the test started literally immediately. As I ran off in the first 100 meters, I realized that my backpack was packed totally wrong. So this is a foot race, but our idea was that we should run, or we would run as much as we could. I couldn't run the first few kilometers because I just had my distribution totally wrong. So I spent my first 3-4 kilometers moving kit from the front to the side pocket to the back pocket and back to find the optimal, call it, weight distribution that I could actually run with my pack, not either being slapped in the face or, you know, feel uncomfortable. So it kind of just throws you off your game. I don't think there's another word to describe it. I mean, you haven't even done a kilometer and your mind tells you there's 399 kilometers left and you're not even comfortable right now. And I just got my kit and my backpack sorted, and the next challenge arose. Now, this whole race was self-navigating, so it means that we needed to navigate ourselves. We got given a GPS track that you could put on your watch, and we had aerial photographs or sky, called Google Earth prints of the area we were running through. The Google Earth prints, I think we got 55 or 56 photos, so it's a lot to work for. Now, most of these GPS devices can only handle 10,000 points. So if you do a 50k race or something like that, 10,000 points is not a problem. The guys from Nav World, the Garmin specialists, thought, okay, they would optimize these tracks for the race, and they decided that 7,500 points was the optimal value to be compatible with all GPS devices out there, even the older generation e-tracks. So what we ended up with was 400 kilometers, but we only had 7,500 little pins in between. So what would happen is, instead of, if the road would curve like this, instead of having a curved road like you would normally have in a GPS, you had a straight line running all the way there, but you had to go there to get to that point. And literally at kilometer 5, me and another guy were lost. Okay? So again, thinking, I've got 395 k's to go and I'm already lost. So, you know, you kind of start thinking, what am I doing here? So very quickly I realized, you know, what the situation is, and we kind of started to figure out how to work these things. And that's where the friends and allies came in. Very, very quickly I met up with Peter and with Kim. Funny enough, we were actually going down one path and Kim came from the front. Fortunately, we were going the right way, and she realized maybe it's good to stay with us, only for us to realize that she's got the much better GPS than me. So that was a good decision. So the three of us stayed together, and funny enough, for the rest of day one, bearing in mind we started at 12 o'clock midday, so day one was only 12 hours, we covered, we got to the first race village at 2 o'clock that night, the next morning. So we did about 14 hours and we covered 80 kilometers, which we were very, very happy with. And funny enough, our biggest challenge for that first day was we were starting to think, if this is the sort of pace that we're moving at, we're going to have a problem. Because all of us booked accommodation only from day 5 at the resort. So if we now arrive 2 days early, we're either going to have to pay $2,000 for accommodation, or we're going to be stuck out on the grass. So our biggest problem on day one was thinking we're moving too fast. But you know what they say, don't ever count your chickens before they hatch. Okay. So as the hero's journey would have it, you know, as you progress through all of this, you get to a point called you approach your innermost cave. Okay, so that means where you have that deep inner conversation with yourself. Now, my second day, and I think all three of us, our second day went fairly okay. We again made good progress. But as this day continued, I kind of got the feeling that something's not perfect with my left hamstring. It was sore, but I didn't worry too much. And as we got into the night part of the race, I realized that my left calf was really, really, really sore. And I thought maybe climbing over a rock or climbing over something, I knocked it. Only to realize that my innermost cave would actually be my innermost calf. And that photograph was taken the next morning, and my calf muscle was so inflamed, it wasn't even funny. And the last part of day 2 was about, I still remember, a 1.5 kilometer climb up a very, very steep hill. Now for those who've done hills will know, you know, walking up a hill or running up a hill really pumps your calf muscles. Okay, so if your calf's already swollen, by the time you get to the top, it just feels like it's going to burst. And that was probably the most painful experience I've ever had. And we arrived at Coromandel Estate about 3:30, 3:45 that morning. We've done about 163 kilometers, and it's the most amazing place. There's some of the photos there, and if you look at the slideshow later on, they describe it to us as a James Bond type house. And it literally, if you were to see this, it would look like a house James Bond would stay in. Or, wie sê ou met die kar, Batman? Yeah, Batman might be interested as well. Just go back. So we got there. The first thing I did is, we got there about 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, and we were happy with our progress. We've done about 163 kilometers. I jumped into a warmish bath. I say warmish because there was a lot of people there, so the warm water wasn't warm anymore, so it was a warmish bath. We had something to eat and we went to bed. Our plan was to sleep until 7 o'clock the next morning. Part of this race as well is there's no stages. You get to a race village, but no one forces you to sleep. You make your decision. You can sleep for an hour, you can sleep for 5 hours, you can just go. It's up to you. You make your own decision. So what happened is we went to bed at 4:30 or 4:45 or whatever the case may be, and our plan was to sleep till 7. I distinctly remember literally jolting awake at probably 2 minutes to 6. And the first thing that went through my head is that my calf is 10 times worse than it was 2 hours ago when I went to bed. And that had a kind of really, I don't know how to put it, like a real dampening effect on me. I got up and I walked into the bathroom, and this whole concept of having that inner discussion, that followed. I was standing in front of a mirror in this weird place. I need to describe it quickly to you. You walk in and there's a bedroom of 4 beds. You walk past it and you literally have a bathroom all the way to where the bar starts, with an open bath on this side. The bedrooms are open, and then you go into a toilet, and then you go into another bedroom. It's the strangest house, but I was standing in front of this big mirror and I was having a conversation with myself. And for those who's done anything like this sort of race will know how that conversation went. It went, what are you doing here? Okay, so I really asked myself, what was I doing here? What was my fault? Why do I always have to try and do the hardest thing out there? Why can't I just go do something simple and easy? And I went back and forth through this, and any adventure race, and I think Sean will agree, being on the other side sometimes, is there's not a lot of sympathy for an ultra runner if you quit or withdraw from a race. These guys who come through here with Expedition Africa, they quit, they basically are on their own. We got told if you quit from this race, they will transport you to the next race village, and then you treat it as a member of the public. That means that you are on your own. No matter what you've paid for, what you've got, if you quit and you pull out of the race, there's no sympathy. There's no helicopter that comes to pick you up and someone pampers you and give you food, nothing like that. So I had this idea in my head, or a sudden realization that my parents were still in Pretoria. They were on their way down to J-Bay, and I thought, okay, if I phone my mom now, she can come and pick me up, okay? Really, I promise you that's what went through my head. If I phone my mom now, I've done 163 Ks, I've run further than I've ever done, it's 3 Ks further than that. Okay? If I phone my mom now, she can come and get me, and she can take me back to J-Bay. And then, in that same thought, I looked at myself and I said, can you walk? That was all I asked myself. And the answer was yes, I can walk. I might not be able to run, but I can walk. I literally turned around, walked back to the room. As I walked into the room, both where Peter and Kim were also resting, they kind of woke up, obviously, from me getting up. And I said to them, let's just go. Let's not waste any time anymore. Let's just go. Let's just walk as fast as we can, but let's walk. No running to that. So we got our kit, we got up, and out the door we went. And I thought, that was my ordeal, you know, that was my big challenge, you know, all of it. But in the hero's journey, there's something that's called the supreme ordeal, okay? So if you watch any movie, the hero always needs to go through some heavy, serious, big challenge. So I thought I just went through my challenge. Little did I know, my challenge waited for me in about 20 kilometers. So we again went through some of the most amazing scenery, and I had the photos in the slideshow and I decided to take it out because it kind of distracts. So when I'm finished, I'll put the slideshow back on again, and you can see some of the scenery we ran through. And I think that's part of what makes these races so special. I said to someone earlier today, I don't remember who, I think in the 400 kilometers, I probably saw 5 people that wasn't part of a race somewhere out on the routes. I mean, you're remote, you're in those forests, you're on your own, it's 1 or 2 people with you, and that's it. There's no other people, you don't come across strangers, it's just amazing, it's you and nature. But yeah, my supreme ordeal waited for me. So that was the water point at Klip School. Now the little school, or the school, is to the left, and the farmer's house is to the right, there where the bucky standing. And I remember us walking in and being really, really proper farm hospitality. The 2 farmers there were extremely friendly, and from the moment we walked in, they were bragging about their boerewors. that you will not find this in any brand store. This is not championship boerewors or this or that. This is homemade boerewors. It's amazing. And except for the boerewors, they had homemade chutney and homemade sauces. They obviously had coffee and all the other drinks. You know where this is going, right? And they had pomegranates. Funny enough, and they were frozen in little plastic bowls. And I mean, that was for me one of the most amazing snacks. It was hot, and eating this bowl of pomegranate that's frozen was actually that was amazing. As we leave, we've got about 31, 32 kilometers to the next water point. We would do 8 Ks on gravel road, and then we have a 22, 23 kilometer climb all the way to the next checkpoint. A long but steady climb. So we thought, oh, this is all doable. And about 5 kilometers from this checkpoint, I had the first kind of churn in my stomach. And I thought, no, this is nothing serious. It's probably a little bit of indigestion, nothing to worry about. And I kept going. And about another kilometer, and I had to say to the two with me, you guys go ahead. I'm just going to quickly head into the bushes. And, here's my daughter. And, yeah, I headed into the bushes and found my way back into the path. And I caught up with them about 2 kilometers further, only to realize that they were laughing at me, but when I caught up with them, they had both run into the bushes about 4 or 5 times. So at that moment in the race, both Imodiums and Eco Wipes, which is the only thing you carry with you, became a tradable commodity because there was very, very little of that trading around. So what we came to the conclusion we had proper food poisoning. There was no doubt about it. And funny enough, as the runners kind of compressed a little bit, some of the guys caught up from the back, but almost as they caught up to us, they started getting sick as well. And there was eventually about 5 or 6 people we knew in a very short range that were not in a good state. And the only thing we all had was boodles. So, best in the world. Best in the world. And you know what, I mean, I think to the defense of the farmers, what happened, they had a skottel scar. I don't know what you call it in English. Okay? And remember, the runners come about an hour apart. Okay, so they would switch off the skottel scar and the fat inside it would get nice and hard. And then a new runner comes in and they light it up and then they melt the fat and they braai the wors and they switch it off. And that was continuing through the night. So that's what we kind of figured out might have caused a little bit of discomfort. Okay, so I'm actually joking when I say discomfort because it was very uncomfortable. So, the rest of our day was actually horrible. We had a long way to go. We were climbing, we had a difficult stretch to navigate and our minds were just not in it anymore. We were moving slowly. Somehow we couldn't time our bathroom breaks. They ended up being, all at different times. So we slowed the whole pack down, And I remember still at one stage we were going down a hill, but we were so tired we decided we're going to sleep for 15 minutes. Now the funny thing that starts happening when you do this sort of races, 5 or 15 minutes or sometimes even 4 minutes of sleeping really rejuvenates you. So it sounds funny, but believe me, if you ever try it, it works. And there was this one runner, she was behind us, Kerry. She was one of the few people that didn't have a boerewors roll, so she was moving. And we had trackers, like these guys at the expedition have trackers, so the family members could track her. Her husband was tracking her and she wasn't happy with the runners with her. And he said to her, no man, catch up to the group in front of you. That was now the 3 of us. They were moving at a fairly decent pace. So her goal was to kind of catch up with us. She caught us, but when she caught us, we were lying on an incline, and I can just imagine her coming across the scene. It must have looked at something from a war movie. Because I was lying upside down with my head downwards and my leg up so that I could get the swelling out of it, totally passed out. Kim was kind of lying to the one side. I know she spoke to Kerry, and I remember something or someone coming past, and that's it. And I know Peter was lying next to me, also asleep somewhere. So this must have looked very strange. So she just came and left. Now, we pulled ourselves together and we started moving again, because ultimately, what do you do? I mean, you can't really stop. We're literally in the middle of nowhere. No one's going to send a helicopter to come and get us. We need to move. And we did. We got to the 200 kilometer mark. at about, what did we say, 5:51 that afternoon. That was supposed to be, I would say, kind of like a happy moment. We were looking forward to the halfway mark. I mean, it's halfway through the Munga. It's 40 k's further than I've ever run, and that's probably the fakest smile I've ever done on a photo run. At that point, we've missed one of the unofficial water points. So what we had is we had a lot of unofficial water points, which was like a stream or something running past where they know the water was safe. The unofficial water point was at 195 kilometers. We were on 200, there was no water to be seen. So we were definitely a little bit dehydrated at that point, maybe not a little bit, maybe a little bit more. We were tired, we haven't really eaten after the booty rolls, and we didn't have water anymore. So from that point onwards, as it got dark, it's amazing how your mind starts jumping towards things, especially shadows and any shadowy objects. For me, everything resembled water. I saw a tap, I saw a little hut, I even saw the most pristine lake with perfect reflections of the trees and the water, and I still said to myself that couldn't be true, and then I answered myself by saying, look, there's reflections in the water. Okay? Only to realize when you get there, there's nothing. So we did eventually stumble across a pond or a puddle. What's a puddle? Okay. At that point, we were so, and I mean that's actually amazing where you get to. You get desperate. We drank water from that puddle, which maybe in hindsight wasn't the most perfect thing we could have done. And we eventually got some water purification tablets from the rest of the oak, so we chucked that into our water bottles. Hopefully they did their job inside our stomachs eventually. But we were thirsty, and we still had about 14 k's to the checkpoint, the next water point, and we were still planning to go to the next race village, because if we don't do our 80 k's a day, we weren't going to make it. So after this, obviously it got dark, we had a little bit more water, not a lot of water, and we were pushing on. The group kind of got together, we were about 5-6 people moving, and it was getting cold. That was one thing, it was one of the coldest nights. We even had our waterproof gear on. So we had all our warm clothes and we put our waterproof gear over that to try and block out wind and all those sort of things. I remember at one point me and Kim fell back a little bit and we caught up to the guys, but as we caught up, they got up to move. And you know, that's probably the worst thing that could happen to you, because you see these 3-4 guys sitting, resting, and as you get there, they stand up and they go. And I just thought, screw this, I'm going to sleep here for 15 minutes. And Kim said, no, she's not going to sleep. I said, well, then you go with a group. And I remember sitting down and I set my watch to 15 minutes, and I just lay back in the bush. And about a minute later, I jolted awake and I thought, maybe this is not the best idea I've had so far. I'm really between nowhere and narrowns. I'm not feeling good. Maybe I shouldn't be on my own. I got up, and fortunately Kim had stopped about 300 meters down the road to put something in her backpack or take something out, so I caught up with her again. And I was lucky, because that remaining 10-12 kilometers, I fell asleep while walking anything between 10 and 14, 15 times. Now, you might all laugh and think it's not possible, but I promise you, you're fully capable of walking at a fairly decent pace and falling asleep at the same time. And Kim would constantly yell at me or pull me back into the road, because she said I would just walk for the side. So it's one of those things that you really can't explain to a person, and the going gets slow. I think that's what's mentally challenging. Everyone that runs know, I mean, I think we had at one stage 6 kilometers to go. I mean, you can run 6 kilometers in 30 minutes. Some people can run it in 25 minutes. I mean, you can do it quickly. It took us 2-3 hours because you were moving so slow. It was cold and you weren't feeling well and you were moving slow. So we eventually made it to the checkpoint. And I tell you, there's nothing as amazing as seeing a tiny little red light in the distance flickering, and you realize that's the water point of the checkpoint. Although that red light can be quite deceiving, you see the red light and you think you're there, only to walk another half an hour to get to it. But the bottom line is, you get there. So, in the hero's journey, the next step is normally, you know, the hero seizes the sword, or they do something amazing, or you get your reward. Well, I got my reward. There's my reward. It's a little stretcher in the back of a church. Okay, I've never slept in a church before in my life, but there's a first time for everything. Those blankets that you see there are probably blankets most of us would put outside for our dog. And it's amazing when you like Sean, I think you said, when a race like this strips you down to your barest levels. You really, really don't care anymore. We got there about 9 o'clock that night, and we agreed that we're going to sleep for 6 hours because we needed it. We were busted. We were almost 40 kilometers behind schedule, but there was no way we could keep moving. So I crawled up on that little stretcher and I fell asleep. And one of the most amazing things, that's probably a night I will remember for always, is as people came in and people left, I remember every time looking at my watch, and it will be 11 o'clock, and I think, geez, I've got 5 more hours or 4 more hours. Then it's 1 o'clock, I've got 2 more hours to sleep. It was the most amazing night. We got up at 3:30, we had some coffee, we had something small to eat because we weren't really in the mood to eat, and we got going. And we left this specific checkpoint, I think about 4:15 in the morning. The amazing thing of leaving a checkpoint early in the morning or sleeping that latter part of the night and then waking up just before sunrise, the moment the sun comes up again, it's like offering you a new chance at life. And I mean, that's like life every day. I mean, every day you woke up and the sun shines, I mean, it's a new chance to do something differently. And for us, it was really, really like, they would say in the hero's journey, our road back. You know, so we got moving. I mean, we were blessed, or whatever the right would be, to one of the most amazing sunrises we've ever seen, but we had a long way to go. We kept moving. We had to make it all the way to what is it called, Mary Pebbles? Is it in Sabi? Yeah, we had to make it all the way to Mary Pebbles and Sabi. It was downhill most of the way, and I think a lot of you will know, that's runners, downhill isn't always so fun. People always say downhill is easy. Believe me, this downhill hurt. My leg was still throbbing with pain, it was swollen. We weren't feeling well, we haven't eaten properly, but we were moving. So we eventually got ourselves into Mary Pebbles. We arrived there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Eidie's sister was there, she and a girlfriend met me. They drove up all the way from Victoria. It was amazing to see a friendly face or a family member's face. And I probably spent the first 20 minutes lying on the ground in the checkpoint, literally on the ground. They offered me cushions, I don't care. Like on the ground with my leg up in the air. I had 2 cans of Coke while lying down. It's amazing how well it goes down. And then one of the biggest things, I arranged or pre-arranged for a massage at that checkpoint. Now the one thing I'm very sorry for is I never took a photograph of the physio or the therapist's face when I showed her my leg for my massage, because that facial expression was absolutely priceless. Yeah. The bottom line is she agreed that the most she can do is a very gentle blood flush or something like that to try and help my leg to get better. She did recommend one thing that I do and increase my electrolyte intake, which I did. And if you know me by any way, you know I always tend to do things the exaggerated way. So instead of up it slightly, I think I took 10 electrolyte capsules in the next 3 hours. Okay? So I upped my electrolyte intake.
You upped it?
I upped it seriously. The amazing, we left there, we left the checkpoint, and as we left that checkpoint, they had put out the medals. We all had to sign in and sign out as we get to the race villages. But as we left, there was 2 medals lying. Now,
as a teaser.
Yeah, as a teaser. Now I had a photo of the medal. It's still on my phone, but I had a photo of the medal all the way as I was running, and I still have it on my phone with the words "Never give up." And I never knew how the medal would look, because they told us it was handmade by some artist. But I kind of pictured, you know, something this size, and suddenly here's lying this chunk of metal. And I must say that made a permanent impression on me. But as I left there, we had 86 kilometers, the longest ever stretch, and we essentially had the whole Fani Botha hiking trail. Okay, so some of you know the Fani Botha. We had the whole Fani Botha hiking trail, but we had less than 24 hours to complete it. Most people have 5-6 days to complete the whole Fani Botha. So off we went into the night, and we kept on moving. Plus, we had a nice little climb. Within the first 30 kilometers, we climbed it, well, we had a 1,000-meter vertical climb. Not over that distance, over about 4 kilometers we climbed a kilometer. So that was serious. So we were getting tired, but we were moving again and we were making good progress. We met up with 2 more runners that got lost in that section. Fortunately for me, I'm able to navigate very well in those overgrown sections where you struggle to find the path. I don't know, I just find the path. So we made it through there, and we eventually made it to the hut at about 3:30 the next morning, again, as always, early morning hours. and we decided we'll sleep until 5 o'clock. Waking up that next morning at 5 o'clock was the weirdest thing ever. There was absolute silence. There was no power. There was a generator powering it. But as I woke up, everyone was asleep. The 4 runners with me, or 3 runners with me, there was hikers there was a whole volunteer crew, there were medics, they were all fast asleep. I had to go wake them up to start the generator and to get things going. 5 uur. Yes, probably.
Isn't that weird?
The interesting thing is that the next step in the hero's journey is called resurrection. And that morning for me was literally like a resurrection. It's incredibly difficult to explain it, but I mean, I slept for an hour and a half, I woke up, I felt well. I mean, I made coffee for the other guys, got everyone moving, and we left that checkpoint at water point at probably 5:30 that morning. And within that first half an hour, I realized I was moving faster than all of them. I was really, really moving. And I realized that, well, I kind of got an idea in the back of my head, if I keep going at this pace, there's a slim chance that I can start fighting back. I mean, we were now on day 5, so if I could go through this whole day and I could go through the whole rest of the night, I would have the Monday morning until 12 o'clock to finish the race. If I remember correctly, we had 125 kilometers to go.
Yeah.
So we had 30 hours and we had 125 kilometers. Now, yeah, easy. After you've done 280 odd kilometers. And the funny thing is how you make math. I mean, you do math in your head. We've got a mathematician here, so you might be able to help me. But there's one thing I can do very well while running is I can work out the pace and calculate my distance and everything. And I kept on referring back. I refer back to Eidie, I refer back to Skyrun, Ultra Trail Cape Town. I think, okay, on Skyrun was 100 k's and I did it in 27 hours. I've got 50 hours for a little bit more. Can I make it? You know, you're constantly doing these calculations and maths in your head. And about 2 hours into this morning, I realized I need to let go of these guys. I mean, we've shared almost 4 days, some of us, me and Kim especially. But if I wanted to finish this race, I needed to go. And I still remember phoning Eidie and saying to her, you know what, you won't believe, it's day 5 and I'm running. I'm literally running. I was running at 6.5, 7 minutes a kilometer, running for kilometer after kilometer after kilometer on day 5. And I just thought, geez, I mean, I'm back, I can do this. And that's normally in the hero's journey, that's normally the part where, you know, you're there, you've made it. And if any one of you have watched Star Wars movies, and especially the Star Wars movies, they love using the hero's journey. Just as you think the hero is through it, the biggest challenge is. Okay. So day 5 went along, and day 5 was actually amazing, I must say. Everything of it, we went through, those guys who know Graskop and Sabi, that area, it's beautiful. I mean, we got to see areas that tourists need to literally walk kilometers to go see. The mountains, everything was just, it was stunning, believe me. And we got to the evening, I arrived at Graskop, at the next race village at 5 o'clock that afternoon. As I arrived at Graskop, there were 2 of the girls, Carrie and Misty, they were actually sleeping, and the medic was attending to their feet. Now, in all my previous races, I struggled tremendously with blisters. Some of you might have seen the photos. I don't want to gross anyone out, but believe me, my feet was a mess after any race. Here I was at the end of day 5, and I haven't had a single blister on my feet yet. Okay? So I ran with 1,000 miler socks, which is essentially 2 socks. It's a very, very thin tactile sock that's woven into a thick sock. And as you run, you basically, your skin doesn't shear. It's the socks that kind of rub on one another. I had 2 pairs, and I would wash them every day. Some of you might have seen the photo where I would wash them and I would hang them on the front of my backpack. It would take almost a full day for those socks to dry. So you had to kind of stay in the river, because if you don't wash them and dry them, you don't have socks that night. So at that checkpoint, I had one of the most amazing meals. I had a beef stew. Beef stew, but it was proper chunks of beef and there was proper chunks of fat in it. And that was kind of the food I was craving. I mean, I went through 2 days of almost no food, so this was magical. And I spent about an hour there. I had my shoes off and I wanted to get my feet to dry. Again, it's amazing how quickly your skin dries. I mean, you can walk around with your feet barefoot for about 40 minutes to an hour and your feet dry properly. Because if we don't allow them to dry, we get what they call trench foot, and believe me, if you see the pics, that's horrible. Okay. So to come back to the medic happened to see my feet and he couldn't believe that my feet was in such good condition. So I felt, okay, I'm doing something right. I've got this. So just after 6, I'm out of Graskop and I had a chat to Eidie on the phone, almost took the wrong route as I was talking on the phone. So they say you shouldn't talk and drive, but I think you shouldn't do an ultra run and talk on the phone. It's maybe not a good idea. To cut a long story short, we very soon, as we went out of Graskop, made our way back into the forest. And I don't know, some of you might know the area well, but it can become incredibly misty there. I don't know if it's the right word. You know, almost like we had tonight, almost like a whiteout. And as I went into the forest, we experienced a whiteout. To the point where I kind of lost track of where I am. I mean, you're navigating on a line, as I explained earlier, which isn't really a line. So at one stage I knew I had to follow the tree line. So I followed the tree line because you could barely see the trees, only to realize a kilometer later that I literally walked a kilometer in the wrong direction. I had to be there and I was there. So that's kind of demoralizing because you're catching up and you're trying hard to make up. And that's the first time I referred to the screen grabs or the aerial shots of the area. And it's amazing how quickly you can orientate yourself by looking. I mean, you can't see, but you can look at a picture that shows you all the marks around you. And then on my cell phone, I could on Google Earth have that same image with a pin of where I am right now. And I could see where I am and where I should be. And that's how I started navigating. So using my watch, but also navigating with Google Earth and with screen grabs of where I should be. So it became a bit of a slower process, but I realized that I'm not going to waste a night on my own in the veld by getting lost. I'm going to make this. I eventually got out. I was on the wrong side of a river, had to take off my shoes, wade to the river, put on my shoes again on the other side because the last thing you want is wet feet, believe me. Yeah, the rest of the night was cold. It went very well. There was one very difficult section we had to navigate and I kind of got lost a little bit. And then Kerry that was behind me caught up to me. I was so thankful for this because suddenly there again we were 2 people and we could kind of discuss, you know, where we should go, what we should do. We made it through the difficult section and I still remember how fast she was moving. I mean, this lady was going. I mean, she was walking at a pace that I always thought I could walk fast, but she was walking probably 8 minutes a k. For those who know, I mean, that's fast walking, and we're pushing over 300 k's. And to cut a long story short, we both went brilliant. And then suddenly at about 5 a.m. that morning, it's as if someone just pulled a blanket over us, and both of us we just switched off. It's as if that time of the morning is strange to be out there in the field. The tiredness started to catch you. It was almost like I couldn't go on. I remember a few times what I would do a lot is I would stand like this if I'm tired. Just stand like this. I would fall asleep like this. Standing like this, I would fall asleep only to awake having hallucinated at my shoes and how Salomon's Islab division had customized them especially for me. Okay? I would have this vivid picture of these 2 red shoes with all these toe guards and extra adapters on and things that the engineers in Sweden or wherever had specially put on my shoes. And then I think that the sky was it was clear and the moon must have been out because the moon became like a house. It was like a Monopoly house. You can imagine a Monopoly house up in the sky and light shining out of a Monopoly house with people moving around inside. That's what I saw. And the house changed nationalities. You know, it was different people from different countries as the night progressed. So it's amazing where your mind goes. And we eventually made that last 3-4 kilometers, I don't even know, into what was called Boskom Base. And we arrived at Boskom Base only to be offered, guess what? Hot dogs or boerie rolls. We had boerewors rolls. We were so hungry, we didn't care. We had boerewors rolls, we had coffee, and I met Kerry for the first time about 3 hours earlier, and we were offered a single bed mattress to sleep on. So I said to her, we only know one another for 3 hours, but we will be sharing this bed. So I remember setting my alarm. We agreed that we were going to sleep 20 minutes. So I set my phone for 20 minutes, and I fell asleep like this on my back. And I literally remember bringing the phone to my chest, and the next thing I remember was the phone beeping and alerting me. That was 20 minutes past 6 or maybe 25 minutes past 6. Now we had 5.5 hours left to cut off. Okay, so we were now really pushing it. I'd always hoped that at that time I would be past the final race village and I would be on my way to the end. For the simple reason we got told from day one, the last section, the last 18-19 kilometers is incredibly tough. It's up and down, it's on the edge of a bladder field canyon, and we need to leave at least 6 hours, that's what we've got told. So I had 5.5 hours left, we had 12 kilometers before we even started that leg, so we had about 50 k's to go, and we had 5.5 hours. For those who know ultra running, pretty sure it's not here because he would appreciate it. They always take you down off the mountain, Jan van Alken, my samstem, they take you down the mountain to the checkpoint, and when you leave the checkpoint, what do? You have to go straight back up the mountain, okay? So as we left the checkpoint, we had to go straight back up into the mountain, into the forest. And we were making good time, but we weren't moving as fast as we were the previous day. We were obviously tired. And I really think in the back of our minds, we both made peace with, we will finish this race, but we won't finish this race in the cutoff. So, what I didn't realize, that was my final challenge, or like Luke Skywalker would always face, my final big battle was about to start. I remember us coming down this long, probably a kilometer downhill, literally out of the mountain to close to Berglax potholes. And I could see a vehicle parked at the bottom, and there was someone standing next to the vehicle. And as we approached, we saw it's Alex Harris, one of the race directors, and he was taking photographs of us, and he was chatting very calmly to us. And he said, you guys are the last two people, we've got a slim but fighting chance to still finish this race in the cutoff. And I remember Kerry telling him, but isn't there an extended cutoff? And the reason for this whole story about the extended cutoff kind of arose the previous day. If you remember, I told you guys at the beginning, one of those slides said that the organizers anticipated the winners to win this race in 65 to 72 hours. Okay? The winner took 101 hours. Okay, so he took more than a day longer than what was anticipated. And for those who know Benny Roo, he's one of the country's best trail runners. So it's not like it was an average guy who was just lucky to be the winner. It was someone who was, they trained for this.
Yeah.
So this sort of whole myth started between the organizers, funny enough, and the checkpoints, that there's going to be an extended cutoff. If a winners take 50 hours more, surely the average runners must get 10 hours more. So Alex very calmly just said, there's no extended cutoff. He said this race was, could you run 400 kilometers in 120 hours? That was the challenge. There's no, okay, we'll give you a little bit more, sorry you didn't make it, we'll help you. And the funny thing happened to me. In my mind, I heard what he was saying, but in my mind, I saw him standing with this. This is my medal. So I saw him standing with this medal in his hand, standing like this. And what he was saying to me wasn't, there's no cutoff. He was saying he doesn't care what I did in the previous 380 kilometers. It doesn't matter. It's like, I think probably like in life. I mean, you always find people who like to tell you what they've achieved in the past. Life is not about that. Life is about what you do today. And what he was saying to me there is, he doesn't care. If I want this, it's not the previous 380 Ks, it's not food poisoning, it's not having water, it's not being tired, it's literally what I'm going to do in the next 24 kilometers. So without saying a word, I turned around and I ran. And I promise you, in that previous hour since we left the checkpoint, I actually couldn't contemplate running again. I thought it would be months before I run again. And I turned around and I ran at some stages at less than 6 minutes a kilometer. And we were running over trail terrain. We were running to Berglax potholes, which was really, it was a tough section. Now my calf wasn't well, and at one stage I had to leap over a river. And it was probably from here to where the tripod's standing. And I made the mistake of pushing off with my left leg. So as I pushed off, I could feel the muscle do this. So again, I realized this was probably not the best thing I could have done so far, but I can't stop now. So I ran the 5 kilometers from where we met Alex into Berglax potholes, where the final race village were, in apparently the fastest time of the day. And believe me, I'm not the fastest runner out there. Or before that day, I didn't think so. And running into that race village, or into Berglax potholes, was an amazing experience. The staff was lining the street and they were cheering me on. And I really felt like this is how one of the winners must feel. I mean, these people are cheering me on properly. And obviously Alex had driven around and he told them, you know, that I was pushing for it. I got to the race village, I signed in, I took off all my warm clothing because I still had all my warm clothing on. There was no time to take it off. I stuffed it into my bag. I filled my bladder with water because there was still 19 kilometers left and I knew it was going to be hot and it was going to be tough. I had another quick electrolyte, and as I was about to leave, the medic came to me. And the medic came up to me and he said, you know what, you will get that medal. And I still looked at him strangely and he said, remember day 2 at Coromandel Estate, that James Bond village, or James Bond house. He said, remember when you were struggling with your leg? He was helping me. And he said something to me, and my response to him was, don't worry, I will finish and I will get my medal. And the funny thing is, he was repeating my words back to me, which acted as a very, very powerful affirmation, because he basically confirmed to me what I probably subconsciously knew. So I ran out there. I had 3 hours and 14 minutes to cover 19 kilometers. Now, that's a lot of time if you're a runner. I mean, 21 Ks for even an average runner, or let's say most people that's runners can probably run a 21K in under 2 hours. I don't think that's a stretch. So I had 3 hours and 14 minutes. But the section I was running through was serious. What I didn't know is I had just received a WhatsApp from my friend Andy, who came in third, who was the third overall man, saying, please leave extra time for the last section. He did it through the night, so granted it took him, but he took 5.5 hours to do that section. And believe me, Andy is a fast runner. So fortunately, I didn't read that WhatsApp. So I wasn't aware. So I was still in this euphoric state where I believed, you know, let's go. So I ran. And this was the strangest, this is probably the strangest 3 hours of my life, because what happened to me there mentally and the way I talk to myself is very difficult to tell another person. But the conversation were constantly about can and can't. I mean, I was pushing myself, and then every now and then, as I ran, obviously I was again watching my ETA very carefully, and the whole time I was on the dot. I mean, my watch would say ETA 12:01, or 11:59, or 12:02, or 11 or 12 o'clock. So I knew there wasn't time to waste. So every now and then, I inevitably would go to a fast walking pace, and I would ask myself, but why are you walking? And if I couldn't come up with an answer, I would start running again. And I mean, what's so amazing about that is you've got that ability in you. I mean, it's nothing magical happened. No one gave me an injection or some magic potion. I didn't think I could run that fast. But yet, somehow, when I pushed my mind past a specific point, I suddenly could start running. Some of you know I love reading the books of the Navy SEALs, and a lot of the Navy SEAL books, and specifically that Hell Week and those things that they have, go about teaching people that when you think you are exhausted, when you think you cannot do anything more, they call it the 40% rule. You've used but 40% of your physical ability. And that doesn't just apply, I believe, to your physical body. It applies to mental, it applies to everything we do. When we get to that point where we think we cannot take another step, I promise you, you can. And it's I think once experiencing that it's possible. So I kept pushing. And I had this whole conversation in my head. I wrote half a book in that time while I was running. I mean, I had all these chapters and all these things. I took notes of it afterwards. I must still go do it. But I literally wrote the book in my head in those 3 hours. Halfway through those 3 hours, with about 10 Ks to go, I heard someone cheering. And you know, for those who run trail will know, very few trail runners run like this. You kind of run looking there. You normally look about 2 meters or so ahead of you. So I heard someone screaming, but there was a lot of runners supporting and people in the race that withdrew, they were supporting, and I saw 3 people on the horizon. And then I thought, geez, that voice sounds very much like my wife. And then everything, at this point, everything turns graphical in your head, or for me at least. So all I saw was a map of South Africa. So I saw up here, Blyderrivier Canyon and Jeffreys Bay here at the bottom. So my mind said, it's not possible. Okay? I just spoke to her 2 hours ago. She's in Jeffrey's Bay. There's no way she can be up here. Okay, so I continued running because I also heard her at Skyrun last year, going up the bridle pass. I was 100% convinced Eidie was at the checkpoint. Only to my disappointment to realize it's not over. Okay? So I continued pushing on, and the next moment I looked up and I realized it was Eidie. And some of you might have seen the video. It's not a good idea to look up while you're running, so I fell all over for my wife again. So it was like renewing our vows just there and then. And then I had the privilege of having her company for the last 10 kilometers into the finish. And that last 10 Ks went like the previous 10. It was a constant battle with myself about not giving up, because I think everything inside you is screaming to stop, and then there's this one little voice that keeps on telling you it's possible. So some of you that see it, I mean, it's no point in putting it up here, but I mean, some of you might have seen the video, they live streamed it. The bottom line is I crossed that finish line with 1 minute to spare. I completed the 400 kilometers in 119 hours and 59 minutes. Okay? It was never planned that way. Never the goal. The goal was never to make a dramatic entrance, okay? But it kind of worked out that way. I looked at the video this afternoon. Eidie showed me the video of one of the teams we know finishing Expedition Africa. They also had to push very hard in the last section, and I could kind of I could identify with the headspace they were in, because I sat down at that finish line. And you know what, we were at the 3 Rondavels lookout point. There were tourists bussed every. We didn't care. We sat there probably for half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, just there, and we had our own conversation. All the tourists had to walk around us, and we didn't care. It was the most amazing time. And yeah, you definitely high. I mean, it's the most amazing legal high you can experience. The only problem is you need to. It took 190 hours to get there. But that being said, I think that kind of says it all. In the beginning, I said there were 23 starters, and then we were 9. I mean, we were only 9 people who finished this race. You know, I came in last, but I can tell you, this is only a chunk of metal. It's a metal made of metal. But I think Eidie said it the best today. I mean, it's a symbol of possibility. It's a symbol of what's possible if you can push your mind past your own preconceived ideas. That what you think that's limiting you or holding yourself back. If you can convince yourself to push past it, this is what's possible. I mean, this is something I didn't call it in a physical space, but I don't think I'll ever be the same after this race, because what I experienced, I personally think stretched my mind so far in terms of possibilities that it just can't go back, because it's just so wow. You know, it's almost not possible. And the amazing thing of a hero's journey is the hero's journey is never complete until the hero returns back and he takes home what's called in the hero's journey the elixir, or some piece of wisdom. And for me, to some extent, that journey finishes tonight. I mean, me being able to stand here and share this with you guys is literally the conclusion of all of this. It's being able to say, you know what, I believe it's possible. You know, I've always been a very, very positive person or optimistic person, but this really just, you know, I've done some weird things in my life and some crazy things probably, but this just stretched. You know, it wasn't a physical experience. Yes. It was literally a spiritual experience for 5 days. It was a spiritual journey into my own self and my own way of thinking, and it was amazing. You know, there's one saying that I love. I think it's Oscar Wilde that said, you know, most people or very few people actually live. Most people only exist. And I think my challenge for tonight is to say to all of you, you know, live. I mean, this for me was, and I don't want to make it sound like it was only those 5 days. It wasn't those 5 days. Those 5 days that I had to go away was 5 days that kind of jolted me to say, there's more to life. There's more to life than you know what we think, and we're able to do more. And if I had to go run 400 k's to learn that, so be it. You know. So thank you guys for listening. Appreciate, and please, if you guys want to know, I know there was a lot of questions and things, ask away.